A lot of things this case has stopped me from doing, traveling all across the world, making. So I just want to get it over with, and, you know, accept my guilty plea. I'm ready to get over it.
Boosie going to jail! Oh, God, I keep telling y'all, street got no God. God do not look after street. Boosie really thought he wasn't going to jail for that pistol. I knew he was going. He going to jail. All that newborn baby. Boosie won't get to see that newborn baby till that baby be walking and talking.
Anything you want to say to your fans?
Just say a prayer for me. I just need prayer. I don't need nothing.
Celebrating you taking the plea deal. I think he even said he hopes you die in jail and stuff like that.
Yeah, I heard.
The biggest thing right now was that you actually accepted a plea deal for your federal gun case.
Yeah.
Boosie going to jail!
I've been fighting for probably 3 years now, probably.
3 years.
Them white folk, Boosie, you done got too much. You done let these niggas play you too motherfuckers. This internet dumb and it. Say what Lil Tootie gonna do now?
You were attacking Kanye because of the
Nah, it's Kanye West. It just had a ruling in the Supreme Court that went in my favor, and the case got dropped by the judge.
That means just, you know, I can't respond to those people, bro.
Yo, in jail, waiting for the FBI to send me the right kind of number, cause I'm finna make a report on your mother people. And you make.
Boosie has officially taken a plea deal that could lock him away for a decade. And Charleston White is celebrating like he just won the jackpot. From mocking Boosie's health struggles to dragging his children into the chaos, Charleston has made Boosie's downfall his personal victory dance. But the real question is this destiny finally catching up with Boosie? Or has hip-hop's most ruthless troll gone way too far? Boosie has battled obstacles his entire life, in the streets, in the music game, and inside the courtroom. But this time, the fight feels different. This time, the walls are closing in for real. After nearly 3 exhausting years of dodging hearing, filing motions, and clinging to hope, the federal firearm charge he once thought he'd beaten has returned with a vengeance. And now, he's staring down the possibility of 10 long years behind prison walls. But here's the shocking twist. This isn't just another rapper catching a random case. This exact charge was thrown out once already, back in 2023. Boosie walked out of that courtroom believing God had cleared the path for him to finally focus on family and music again. Fans cheered. His inner circle breathed a sigh of relief. And for a brief moment, it seemed like the nightmare had been buried for good. And that's not all. Just when Boosie believed he was free, the feds circled back. By 2024, the same case reappeared, stronger, sharper, and nearly impossible to shake. Imagine waking up every morning, knowing the demons you thought you'd escape were back on your doorstep, heavier than before. But it gets worse. While Boosie wrestled with exhaustion and the crushing weight of the system, another man was celebrating like it was a holiday. Charleston White, the loudest troll in hip-hop. The moment Boosie's situation hit social media, Charleston was online smiling ear to ear, turning another man's downfall into his own personal comedy show. And it gets crazier. Charleston wasn't just satisfied seeing Boosie struggle. He flat out admitted he had hoped for this day. Cold, calculated, and relentless. Charleston White didn't waste a single heartbeat before turning Boosie's legal nightmare into his own personal stage performance. The instant the headlines dropped, Charleston was online, dancing, laughing, and chanting, "Boosie going to jail," as if he'd been waiting for this celebration all his life. He even went so far as to taunt Boosie's newborn child, saying the baby would be walking and talking before Boosie ever laid eyes on them again. And here's where it takes a darker turn. Charleston didn't just react, he bragged. He claimed this was the moment he had been anticipating for years, saying it was only a matter of time before Boosie stumbled. For Charleston, this wasn't about commentary, it was about victory. But the backstory makes it even more twisted. This wasn't some internet troll suddenly attaching himself to a famous name. The hostility between these two men has been brewing for a long time. Their feud traces all the way back to 2022, when Kanye West shook the culture with that infamous White Lives Matter shirt. Boosie, always outspoken, called Kanye out and stood against the disrespect. The majority agreed with him. Charleston, he flipped the entire narrative, attacking Boosie for even daring to speak on the issue. That clash lit the fuse. What followed was even more shocking. Charleston didn't just keep his insults focused on Boosie, he dragged Boosie's family into the fire. He ridiculed his son, Tootie Raw, and even went after T.Y.'s son, King Harris. He hurled ugly remarks, questioned their toughness, and even claimed both boys would land in jail one day. That wasn't entertainment, that was personal warfare. And the wildest part? Charleston was only just beginning to unload. Eventually, Boosie's son, Tootie Raw, had enough. After months months of sitting back while Charleston White ripped into his family, Tootie finally snapped and fired back. He jumped online, calling Charleston old, bitter, and messy, even going so far as to tell him to just go and die. The internet lit up instantly, with fans thinking this was the moment Charleston would finally get shut down. But the truth, things didn't cool off. They escalated. Charleston didn't retreat or soften his words. He doubled down with venom. Instead of sticking to playful insults, he crossed a line almost no one expected. He said, live on camera, that he hoped Boosie would die from diabetes. He mocked Boosie's health battles, saying he wished doctors would forget to send him insulin 1 month. And here's where it becomes chilling. That wasn't trolling anymore. That was cruelty disguised as entertainment. Charleston wasn't just jabbing at Boosie's reputation. He was aiming directly at his humanity. Then came the twist. Almost like Charleston's words carried a curse, Tootie himself was arrested just weeks later on a gun charge. And when that news broke, Charleston immediately popped up online, claiming credit. He boasted that he tipped off the authorities, that he'd submitted photos, and even that he personally called law enforcement to make it happen. What kind of man celebrates a child's arrest? What kind of person boasts about being the one to set the trap? This wasn't comedy anymore. It was psychological warfare. Charleston attacking Boosie's family at its very core. And disturbingly, he wasn't slowing down. If you want to keep up with this wild story as it unfolds, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter. By this point, the rivalry had crossed every imaginable boundary. Charleston White wasn't satisfied with online taunts anymore. He openly bragged about wanting Boosie locked away. And then, as if the universe lined it up, the perfect storm hit. Just months after Tootie's arrest, Boosie himself was snatched up in San Diego, immediately after walking out of a courtroom. It was almost like the system had been waiting in the shadows for the right moment. But the madness didn't stop there. Charleston pounced instantly, turning Boosie's arrest into his own personal circus. He went live, grinning like a preacher delivering a sermon, declaring this was all part of God's plan. He compared Boosie to Daniel in the lion's den, painting prison as some kind of divine punishment. Fans couldn't believe it. Some brushed it off as trolling, while others thought Charleston might actually believe his own twisted sermon. Either way, he managed to twist Boosie's pain into yet another headline for himself. And the deeper it went, the uglier it got. By midsummer, Boosie finally cracked and spoke on Vlad TV. You could hear the exhaustion in his tone. He admitted he didn't even want Vlad putting a spotlight on Charleston, especially after the shots aimed at his son. But still, he held back. He insisted he wasn't scared, just cautious. He knew Charleston wanted him to explode, but he wasn't going to hand him that victory. Still, you could feel it. Charleston was living rent-free inside his head. Every arrest, every headline, every whisper, Charleston was right there, waiting to turn it into another celebration. And disturbingly, he was only gaining momentum. By early 2024, the chaos between Boosie and Charleston White had spilled far beyond the streets and the blogs. It had seeped into internet culture itself. The spark came when Twitch sensation Aiden Ross, one of the biggest names in streaming, announced he wanted Boosie to appear on his show. For Boosie, this could have been a major moment, a chance to tap into millions of younger viewers, expand his audience, and show a new side of himself. But things didn't play out that way. At the last minute, Boosie pulled out. Why? Because he didn't want to risk being tangled up with Charleston White's mess. He knew the second Charleston's shadow touched the situation, it would spin out of control. And then came the twist. Instead of admitting Boosie stepped back, Aiden flipped the story completely. He went online and claimed he was the one who turned Boosie down, out of loyalty to Charleston. That single lie spread like wildfire. Within hours, memes and jokes flooded social media, painting Boosie like he'd been rejected by a streamer, when in reality, he was simply trying to avoid Charleston's poison. And here's where it took an even stranger turn. The moment grew so loud that DJ Vlad himself stepped into the fire. He slammed Aiden Ross for siding with Charleston, reminding everyone that Charleston wasn't just a troll. This was a man who had praised Hitler and denied the Holocaust on record. That wasn't just trolling anymore. That was dangerous. And the more Charleston's name spread, the stronger his grip on the culture became. He wasn't just a loud voice on YouTube. He was bending narratives, twisting stories, and pulling powerful names into his orbit. And frighteningly, he still wasn't finished. By the spring of 2024, Charleston White had taken his antics to an entirely new level. He wasn't just laughing at Boosie's struggles anymore. He was proudly boasting about turning the federal government into his personal weapon. On live stream after live stream, Charleston painted the picture that Boosie was calling around, warning promoters not to book him. Instead of brushing it off, Charleston twisted the narrative, claiming Boosie was making threats and bragging that he'd already picked up the phone to contact federal agents. But that was only the beginning. Charleston went even further, announcing to his followers that the FBI was basically his private security team, daring Boosie to step out of line so he could have him hauled away again. He presented himself as untouchable, a man protected by the very system that was crushing his enemies. And the cruelty didn't stop there. Charleston went for the lowest blows possible, mocking Boosie's diabetes as if it were a punchline, throwing out comments so harsh that even people who usually laughed at his trolling felt uneasy. This wasn't comedy anymore, it was cruelty dressed up as entertainment. Then came something even darker. Boosie revealed that people already locked behind bars were calling him directly, asking when he was going to join them. Imagine the weight of that, fighting a federal case, watching trolls mock your downfall, and then answering phone calls from inmates saving you a spot. That's psychological warfare, and Charleston thrived on it. And deep down, Boosie knew knew one thing. If Charleston ever showed up in a courtroom, the trial wouldn't be about justice. It would be a circus. That thought alone may have been enough to push him toward the plea deal. And yet, Charleston's own past carried secrets that made this feud even more twisted. If you're locked into this story and don't want to miss what comes next, hit subscribe and stay tuned, because it only gets wilder from here. Charleston White has built his brand on calling rappers rats, tearing down anyone tied to paperwork, and exposing so-called snitches to the world. But here's the contradiction. Charleston himself has carried that same label since he was a teenager. Back when he was only 14 years old, Charleston was involved in a robbery gone wrong. Another kid pulled the trigger, and a man named Michael Levy was shot. Instead of keeping silent, Charleston took a stand and testified against his co-defendant, Antoine Doolittle. In street culture, that's the ultimate betrayal. From that day on, his name was stamped snitch. But Charleston didn't run from it. He leaned into it. He's admitted publicly that he's been telling since childhood, even laughing about it on live stream. He says he was never raised by street rules, that testifying wasn't betrayal, it was survival, and in his eyes, that decision saved his life. But things got even messier when old footage from that juvenile case resurfaced online. The internet lit up, calling him out as a hypocrite. How could the same man clown rappers for being rats when he himself testified in court? Fans and critics alike flooded comment sections demanding answers. Charleston didn't flinch. He doubled down, waving his paperwork like a badge of honor and declaring that he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He never lived by the street code, so in his mind, he can't be judged by it. And that's exactly why he's so dangerous in this feud. While Boosie has to watch every word, careful not to incriminate himself further, Charleston plays by no rules at all. He's willing to cross lines Boosie can't, and that's where his advantage lies. And soon, Boosie's plea deal would push this battle into its final, most painful chapter. Eventually, the pressure became unbearable. After years of dodging hearings, watching charges vanish, and then return like ghosts, Boosie finally surrendered to reality. He admitted he was done fighting. Instead of rolling the dice in court again, he chose to accept a plea deal. 10 years, an entire decade of his life, gone in a flash. For a man who'd survived shootouts, beefs, and endless legal battles, this moment felt like the walls had finally caved in. But the part that stunned fans the most was Boosie's demeanor. The fiery Baton Rouge icon who once clapped back at trolls with raw energy now sounded drained, almost broken. He told his supporters not to send money, not to beg for lawyers, just to pray for him. Not demands, not anger, just prayer. You could hear the weight of exhaustion in every word he spoke. Then came Charleston White, and he treated the news like it was his personal championship parade. The second the story hit the blog, Charleston went live with a grin so wide it was unsettling. He bragged that he'd been predicting this day for years. He preached that God doesn't protect street dudes. He even went as far as mocking Boosie's newborn child, saying the baby would grow up before Boosie even had the chance to hold them again. To Charleston, this wasn't just another headline. It was proof, validation that every insult, every cruel prediction, every time he mocked Boosie's health or family had finally paid off. In his mind, the streets had handed him a trophy. But the question hanging over everything was this: is this truly the end of Boosie's story? Or could this be the setup for one of the most unexpected comebacks hip-hop has ever seen? And now we've reached the breaking point. Boosie's future sits in limbo, his name tied to a decade-long prison stretch, while Charleston White celebrates like he just claimed a championship ring. The culture is split in two. Some argue Boosie brought this on himself, that after years of skating past cases and living recklessly, the feds finally boxed him in. Others see Charleston as a parasite, feeding on another man's pain, crossing every boundary just to keep his name alive. But here's the twist. History has shown that prison doesn't always destroy rappers. In fact, for some, it amplifies their legend. For every artist who fades away, another comes home bigger than ever, their legacy forged in the fire of time served. Could Boosie be next in that line? Could Charleston's merciless celebrations actually be the fuel that sparks a rebirth? The flip side is even uglier. If Charleston is this loud while Boosie is still technically free, just imagine the chaos once the gavel drops. Picture the live stream, the interviews, the champagne corks flying. Charleston doesn't see this as justice. He sees it as a victory parade with his name on the banner. And that's what makes this saga so different. It isn't about songs, it isn't about money, it isn't even about beef in the street. This is about humiliation. And Charleston White has made it his mission to humiliate Boosie every step of the way. So the final question looms large. Will Boosie rise from the ashes, proving his resilience once again? Or will Charleston White cement himself as the man who laughed the loudest at his downfall? The answer hasn't arrived yet, but when it does, the entire culture will feel it.